Hi, Stuart. Okay, recording in progress. Okay. My friend Dave, who's in North Carolina, would be very happy about that. He couldn't join us, but I said we would be recording it, and as well as Rabbi Eli Cole from Young Israel wanted to join us, but he's teaching a class as well. So we have. So I want to introduce our program, our summer program. I'm very glad that we were able to connect and meet together over the summer because of this particular story that we are going to cover today and its ramifications in terms of Lashon Hara, proper speech, and kind of society we want to build is very apropos to the times that we're living in, politically, globally, in terms of our Hebrew calendar, going from Shavuot, the highs of Shavuot, and 8 weeks later we go to the very lows of the ninth day of Av, the fast day of Av. So there's a lot for us to talk about. And I want to congratulate our good friend, Stuart Feldstein, who was kind enough to recommend this story, because this story really, in my humble opinion, is brilliant. It connects the dots. It's a connecting string between almost every short story that we have discussed this year, beginning with Shirley Jackson's The Lottery, and going through The Man Who Would Bring Rain, Annabelle Lee, Bread with Margaret Atwood. All these themes that we've discussed are hinted at below what's called the obvious, the Peshat, what's on the surface here. And so it's a brilliant short story. De Maupassant is one of the best short story writers. He's written hundreds of short stories. Of course, he's French. The French I like, and I have a translation of this story. The translation that we're reading in English is very close, extremely close to the French original, because I'm able to go from one to the other. And so we have a short story writer at the peak of his career, time pulling pieces together. So the piece of string is perfectly named for our roundtable, because we're pulling lots of ideas together and hopefully creating a mosaic of understanding, a mosaic of tikkun, of reconnecting pieces and rebuilding the world, which is very sadly today and very, very precarious position, the world that we're living in. Okay, so with that introduction, I was able to put together some what I call resource material. I hope everybody had a chance to look at it, and I'm going to kind of stay close to it because it connects a lot of dots. So one of the first questions that I pose here is, many have commented that the major theme of de Maupassant's story is similar to Shirley Jackson's The Lottery. Now, if you remember, 2.5 years ago, in December of 2019, we started this roundtable with discussing The Lottery. And does anybody want to pick up on that and have any comments as to how this short story, at least on its surface, connects to Shirley Jackson's short story, The Lottery? Anybody want to?
Well, maybe Richard, may want to refresh our memory just of the salient points.
Yeah, well, in The Lottery, if you remember correctly, it takes place in June. It's in a very generic environment. We don't know where it is. It's certainly not in our 21st century, because there's no mention of cars, computers, anything like that. And it's a ritual that people are getting together and celebrate and the lottery, everybody thinks that it's a lottery. Someone's going to take home, $10 million, and have a beautiful estate in Greenwich. But what happens is that this is a once a year event that's celebrated in all the towns in this rural area. It's very rural because people depend on agriculture. And it's in June because that's when the lottery takes place. The lottery in June, and corn's going to be full soon. So the question is, they connect the ritual of the lottery, and the ritual of the lottery involves stoning one member of the particular village. And by stoning that particular person, it serves as an atonement. It serves as a propitiation of some sort to a higher type of theology. I'm not sure what the belief is here, but you sacrifice an individual. This is very primitive culture in order to ensure a full crop. So that's basically the idea of the lottery. The lottery, there's no indication of any form of religion that these people practice, except it's a very primitive type of ritual. It's a primitive, they have this box that goes back many, many generations. It was originally a beautiful adorned box. Now it's just, the paint has come off, and instead there being pieces of wood in it, there are pieces of paper. So it's a ritual that no longer serves a function. And so Shirley Jackson is asking us to look at this type of society. Look at a society where there is no theology, there is no religion, formal religion, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, Judaism, Christianity. It's very primitive, okay? So the question I ask is, how does that culture resemble what's the culture that's presented in the piece of string? Do you get a sense of godliness? There's no sense of there being Hashem, a religious divine figure that we look up to and that we respect, and creates the order of the universe every day. We take it for granted. The sun also arises, according to Hemingway. It just keeps rising, but can't take these miracles for granted. So is there any sign of godliness at all in this, in de Maupassant's short story? So I ask a question here. Let's look at the symbols. There are symbols here, okay? So one of the symbols is the name of the community where this is taking place. It's called Gotterville, okay? So on the sheet I put out, I put the emphasis on the word God, because you'd think that there would be a strong presence of God here. And is there a presence of God? Yeah, go ahead.
In the original French, does it also have a play on words? Okay,
in French, it's Gotterville. Okay, in French, it is Gotterville. So it's a play on the word God, because people would know, that God, Dieu. Actually, the word Dieu is the proper definition of God in French, but Gotterville would call attention to the fact God. I mean, God is almost a universal term. So there's a mention of God here. And then the scene starts off with the people in the town, there being an angelus struck. Okay, an angelus is a call to people to come to church. Okay, and do people come to church in this short story? Stuart, do they come to church? Do they say blessings? When this angelus strikes, where?
Well, there were one or two references to people, going to church. A brief mention that Hoshcom was kept on approaching people and included people who were coming out of church as well as coming out of the tavern or the shop.
Correct. Very good. I mean,
so there is at least a peripheral part, part that religion plays, but it's certainly not central to the life of the
Exactly,
village.
exactly. So what happens here that the Angelus in Christianity is a call for people to go to church 3 times a day. We daven 3 times a day in our shuls, the Shacharis, Dominican Maariv. Well, in traditional Christianity, the Angelus is rung out, and when the Angelus is running out, people go into church, and they pray to God, they pray to Jesus, and basically what they're saying 3 times a day is, Hail Mary, full of grace, blessed is the fruit of thy womb. Okay, so this is Christianity. This is basic Christianity, that we know there's a Trinity, and so they are giving thanks to Mary, who is a saint in the church, for giving them their Christ. Okay, and again, and they come back again in the second part of the day when it rings, and they say, Hail Mary, full of grace, pray for us sinners. Okay, so it is a form of religion. And in the short story, do they go to church when the Angelus strikes at midday? Where do these people go, Stuart? Where do they all flock?
Well, most of them flock to their own shops, so some of them go to the tavern for a noonday meal.
Exactly. I mean, they go to.
There may be a small percentage of the town that goes to a church, but
Yeah, I mean,
it's apparently a weekday. Then most people spend most of their time at their businesses, struggling with their farm work, etc.
Sure. So you have this is an agricultural town, like the lottery. That's another connection. Thank you, Stuart. Another connection between the lottery and this short story, that it's agrarian. And in this short story, the people, they flock to a big tavern. And that's the reason in the handout that I posted, I put a picture of all this, a peasant wedding. So most of these people come into this big tavern, and they got skewers of beef and skewers of pork and skewers of mutton, and the fat is dripping down. You have the smell, and you have hundreds of people descending there. You have the rich aristocrats. There are a few people he mentions aristocrats, the aristocracy of the Plow, which is a translation from the French. We're eating there at Maitre Jourdain. Jourdain is the innkeeper, and he's a dealer in horses, okay, and a sharp fellow who made a pretty penny in his day. So in this community, you picked up right, Stuart, that this is a very mercantile community. The community lives off of each other, and they live to make money. And during their mealtime, when they should be going to church, it doesn't mention a single person going to church. When the Angelus rings, they all go to this tavern, and they're drinking. They're drinking their ale, they're drinking their beer, and they're having a good time discussing what? They're discussing the agriculture. The beginning of the short story begins with a detailed description of these people coming into town. Their long legs were twisted and deformed by painful labors of the country, bending over the plow. One shoulder is too high, the other is too low, by reaping corn, which obliges them for steadiness' sake to spread their knees too wide. So these are deformed people that are coming in, and you have the man of the household is riding the horse or the donkey, and his woman is behind it with a kind of a whip of leaves, of twigs, of branches, urging on the steed to come on. We got to get into town. We got to sell. So this is a very mercantile community where the focus seems to be only on buying and selling. And in this community, we have a major character. His name is Hosh Corn, which the corn refers to almost like when you look at a unicorn, you have a long protrusion, a long nose of some sort. But this Hoshkorn refers to something that Hosh could be translated like a left from the left, or Hosh meaning high. But, this Hoshkorn is somebody who is a part of this community. And what does he do, Stuart? He sees a piece of string on the ground, and he picks it up. Now, a piece of string in our culture, if I saw string and you saw a string, would you stoop down and pick it up? In our culture, if you saw it in shul, for instance, saw a piece of string, very small little piece, maybe an inch, 2 inches, would you pick it up? Any reason to pick it up? If you're not Chris or Mark, you're trying to clean up the shul for Shabbos? No, obviously you wouldn't pick it up. But in this society, this Hoshkorn picks it up because it says that everything has value, and even the smallest little piece of string has value somewhere down the line. This is the type of community that we're living in. Unlike the lottery, where they don't get into the commercialism. Here, there's a big emphasis on this community lives for the dollar, and that this particular Hoshkorn is a Norman. And it says that the Normans got to be watched, because the Normans are people that cheat other people. Everybody in this community is out to get the highest dollar they can for they're selling a chicken, they're selling a pig, whatever it is they're bringing into this town. They got to get the highest dollar. So in this story, the string represents value, and value is in the smallest thing. And in this story, people respect objects much more than they respect people. I mean, that's a major theme here, that the string takes on an enormous symbol, that it's materialism. Gashmiut, we say in Hebrew, that this is a society that lives for the material, and everybody's out to strike a bargain, even if it is cheating the other person. So we know that this Mishra Hoshkom is an enemy of this Mishra Meladin, okay? And there is symbolism in the name. There's similar Goderville, there's similar in Meladin. And Rabbi Kurtz and I discussed this, and he picked up right away. And of course, he said Meladin reminded him of malady, okay? From the word mal in French means something bad, something evil. So Meladin is somebody who perpetrates evil. So you know that there's going to be, shall we say, bad words. There's enmity between these people, and it's almost like a baseless hatred that they have of each other. It's going on for a long time over some stupid halter that because Meladin is a harness maker. He makes harnesses for the animals. And there was a fight over it, and they could not forgive each other. And there's malice. Lincoln said malice toward none in his famous Gettysburg address. Here, there's malice towards all. It's just that. So as we know, what happens in the story, during the meal at Jourdain's, one of the madrashas comes in and says that there was a loss along this road, this Maitre Houellebecq lost a wallet with so many hundreds of francs in it. And if you know anything about it, there's a 20 franc reward, okay? And so that's what happens. And the next thing that happens is what? This Hoshkorn is called in as a suspect because, as you know, Meladin, who is his worst enemy, the worst malice, is saying, "Hey, I saw him pick it up." Whereas Meladin knew he saw him pick up something small. It was very small, like a piece of string. He said, "Oh, I saw him pick up. It was actually it was a purse." And he's the one. So immediately the guilt transfers to this Hoshkorn, and it looks as if he's going to be prosecuted. He's going to be taken to a higher level, and then we learn that the whole town suddenly is turning on Hoshkorn. They're saying, hey, they're turning their backs on him. You did it. And, he's saying, all I do is pick up a string. I mean, this is my enemy. He's making this all up. But no, the very fact that you have this town where everybody's converging on each other, the opening, all these hundreds of people coming in it's market day in the town, Monday and Thursday, market day, and they're bringing all the wares in, and now they're on top of each other, and that's to emphasize the fact that this word of mouth spreads very quickly, because they didn't have internet in those days. They had just word of mouth, and you had hundreds of people eating at Jourdain's, and the word got around, and suddenly this Hoshkorn becomes the target of everybody's malice. He can't rest. He's trying to stop people everywhere, let him know I didn't do it. And then finally, some innocent peasant tells his boss, hey, I found this wallet. And the boss comes in and tells the magistrate, the mayor of the town, but it's too late, because everybody has made Monsieur Hoshkorn into a victim. And now this is so much similar to the lottery, where we have a victim. You've got to have a victim. They got to have, and people have got to bully other people. This is a theme that began with the lottery, and it's continuing here. And we have major connections here, okay? And that's basically a strong intro. There is a lot going on here, but I do want to emphasize the fact that what de Maupassant is creating here goes beyond what Shirley Jackson does in the lottery. Jackson gives you an example of a horrific right. You have to look at some of the stupid rights that you still do in this day and age, in the 21st century, that you have to question. Do you need to continue to do it? Do you need to sacrifice people? And de Maupassant, writing a century earlier, Shirley Jackson wrote hers in approximately 1950, and in the 1860s, 100 years earlier, de Maupassant is writing about that here's a town that needs to find a victim. They've got to find somebody who is responsible. And not only that, this is a town that worships the dollar. There's no sense of religion at all, except that you say they go to church. But yet, on the other hand, no one seems to really care that someone came forth and said, look, I found the wallet. He's not the one that has it. But then, of course, the townspeople say, aha. They say, he's a Norman. He's a trickster. This guy, Hoshkorn, had somebody else. He found it, and in order to save face, he had somebody else return it. So this is the evil that's being perpetrated in this town. And the question I have is, what redemption, what kind of redemption is there in this story that we can point to and say, there's hope? Is there any hope? I mean, de Maupassant is presenting a culture which is downright base, downright. And I mentioned in my notes that remind me of what Abraham tells the king of Sodom in Bereshit, in Genesis, whereas the king of Sodom says, Abraham, you gotten rich by taking spoils that I should have. And Abraham says, if I even took a piece of string from your kingdom, King Sodom, okay, then string me up, so to speak. I'm not Abraham. I'm honest. That's who I am. And even if it's a piece of cord, I would not have taken it. And of course, there is a hint, because the Abraham story, it's Abram at that point. Abram's talking to Sodom, and Sodom, of course, represents a society which is totally corrupt. They want Lot's daughters. I mean, society that the worst crimes are crimes of sodomy, of male bestiality. Okay, and my question is, de Maupassant is presenting a society very much like a Sodom's type society. People living off of each other, screwing each other, every nickel and dime. They're nickel and diming each other. These are really gross pecayune peddlers. And is there any hope in the society? And that's basically where I leave this. And if anybody wants to come in and say, how can we get some love in here? How can we bring in love, which would represent, of course, the Book of Ruth, which we read a couple of weeks ago, and we danced to the tune of love with in a recent poem that we discussed, a song of Leonard Cohen a few sessions ago. But where is the hope in the Maupassant story? And similarly, where is the hope with the lottery? I mean, how do we change things? That's where I kind of leave it. If anybody wants to comment on it, feel free. But I think that the takeaway from the Maupassant is that we have a very corrupt society. The society is mercantile. These are people that live for the money, only for money. The Angelus, the bells of Hashem, if you will, the bells of the church, go unheeded. People just go rushing to get lunch, and they're discussing business. Who got more money for his chicken, and who's coming out ahead? Who screwed who? This is the type of society, okay? And we come out with in a society where one person's malediction, one person saying something evil against someone else, suddenly picked up by everybody because they have to find a victim. Have to find a victim. Every society needs. We have a primitive victim in there, as we discussed earlier in Yom Kippur. That we have the goat that is sent to Azazel in order to atone for sin. So, how do we get rid of sin? How do we atone ourselves? How do we turn a society that is really mercantile, that really is out to screw your brother, so to speak, and literally them?
I think in the long run, this society will not accomplish much, because if money is the only important thing, then money will destroy them. In other words, there's no chesed, there's no kindness, how they relate to each other. If someone is accused, he can't say, no freedom of speech. Look, I didn't do it. They're not, they won't even listen to his reasoning. So they're very ignorant, and a society like that eventually eat themselves up and do not continue on. You can't do that. We know.
Ruth, I think that I think your comments are right on. I mean, that's what I see here. The Maupassant is coming out over a stupid piece of string. They destroy society. They're destroying each other. Right. There's no sense of light here. There's no sense of somebody coming along and saying, hey, guys, you're all wrong. Let this guy off. Let him off the hook. There's no prosecutor on his side. Everybody seems to be prosecuting him, and that's it. I mean, it's very, very pessimistic story, like you say, Ruth. There's no freedom.
There are a lot of societies, from the ancient time, middle, even today, where you can't express yourself. So
exactly.
Now it's different. They have the internet. They have it's the same thing, but different sources they use. You know what I mean? Nothing is new, basically.
Very true. I think you hit on the spot. I was hoping that someone would tie it in to the internet, because we have so much, so much fake news out there. And, it's best to stay off the internet and just humbly follow what you need. I think what the Maupassant is saying, you got to be an individual. If you're going to survive in society, you've got to be individualistic. You cannot join with other people in the society. You got to know who you are and stick to your principles.
Right.
And for goodness sake, stop worrying about a stupid piece of string. There's something more important in life than picking up little, it reminds me,
Well,
growing up in the Bronx.
I
mean,
have a certain philosophy. There's a lot of things go on I might not agree with. Okay. If you can't express your different opinion, that raises a red flag to me. Why? Why not? So that is how I gauge things. If I don't like something and I cannot express my opinion, which is different from the fake news, that sends a red flag up for me. Why? And therefore I said, wait a minute. I'm not going to eat that or take that. You understand? I question everything. I've always done that. I mean, I'm a nonconformist. You know,
Yep.
One has
Yep.
to be that
Sure.
way.
Sure.
That's my opinion. You understand? But a lot of people are not that way. Oh, he got the string, he might be guilty. Well, we can't express this. Well, I didn't. They're not open to this. And that's really bad.
Yeah,
I
it's
think in life, you learn all the time. And if you know, I mean, that's my take on things in a simple way. Okay, thank you for letting me express this.
no. I think it's right on. I think that de Maupassant presents such a corrupt society that he's basically begging the issue and saying, "Hey guys, you're a Ruth Amanoff, you're a Richard Schwartz, you're a Rabbi Mitchell Kurtz,
Right.
you're Stuart Feldstein. Wake up, be a mensch, somebody in that society, in a society where it's totally corrupt. Be an Abraham, be somebody that speaks to the Sodom of your community and saying, hey, I don't want a piece of effing string of yours. I wouldn't touch it. I'm independent of you. Leave me alone." That's what you have to do. You have to be really strong and speak out, and you have to act out. It's not enough to think and speak. You have to act the act. You have to do the act, do the action, not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. And and Rabbi Walk did that, certainly. He did that. He did that. Right. Listen, at this point, I really want to turn the table over to Rabbi Kurtz, because Rabbi Kurtz has a lot to say. The ramifications of speech and proper speech are so important in Judaism that the Proverbs say you create life with speech, and you can destroy life with speech.
Yes.
And that's very true. We live by the word. We're people of the word. If we can't hold our word and stay true to the word, then we aren't a people. And we dissolve like this community. And Gardnerville, watch out, stay away from Gardnerville. Okay. Rabbi Kurtz, I turn it over to you, and enlighten us with hope and enlighten, take our pessimism and stretch it out like a string to the camp of optimism.
Sure. We actually just have the guy with
Leaf blower.
we have a guy with a leaf blower right here for our class.
It's hard. Wait a second. It's breaking up a little bit. If you could speak into your speaker.
Are you able to hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay,
I can hear you.
I don't know if that was a problem. I'll try to speak over now.
But it's cracking up a little bit. Ruth, are you able to hear him?
No.
I hear. Yeah. She can't hear you either. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a guy with a leaf.
And I'm wearing my hearing aids too.
Yeah, I have my hearing aids in too.
Thank God for hearing aids.
Yeah, I mean, thank God for the small things in life, but
Yes.
thank God, that's the main thing, that there is a God to thank.
Yes, you hear?
That
It's
I can
still-
hear that, yeah.
Still now?
Go ahead. I mean, do your best. I mean, but
All
I
right.
hope that I can hear you more smoothly. Yeah.
All right, I'll try now. The leaf lowers away, so maybe that'll help. So there's really two things I wanted to pick up on. One is just, again, thanks for the whole overview, Richard, and the analysis, and Ruth for your insights. It's, you asked a question, Richard, about where hope, where love comes into the story. And I know that's kind of like an inclination we have, that there always has to be a happy ending. But I think what de Maupassant is trying to do is to say that in life, there could sometimes not be a happy ending for an individual. And it's a very sobering thought, but he deliberately doesn't want there to be a happy ending to this story. He wants you to recognize how corrupt this society is and how easily they could just turn on a person on a baseless accusation. And this isn't just, I think Ruth's already getting to this idea that this isn't just, what century was he again? 17th?
No, 19.
Oh, more recent. So this isn't just like 19th century France. This is
Yes, it's
18th
18th
century America and Western society, where, certainly within the past 5 years and the past decade, all the more so, the fact that anyone can make an accusation, the onus of proof is on the accused to clear their name, not on the person who's making the accusation to support their claim against the person. And I'll share with you some Torah sources. I mean, this is I'm preparing, part of how this came up also is that Richard and I, when we were discussing the story, I mentioned that I happen to be preparing a class on defamation in Jewish law. So I'll give you just some of the highlights from there. There are cases that came up actually in recent centuries where there was I think in the community of the Maharik, there was a chazan who someone apparently didn't like the chazan, or maybe felt like davening was too long, or he didn't like his voice. I'm not quite sure what, but he didn't want the chazan to work at the shul anymore. Seeing as he couldn't do it through conventional channels, he made accusation against the chazan. He accused him of impropriety, and what happened is that he caused the chazan. The shul didn't want to have to deal with an accused chazan on their hands, so they didn't fully investigate the matter, and the chazan was fired. And so the Maharik goes on to deal in the tshuva about, well, is there any form of monetary compensation for defamation? What kind of recourse does he have? But these are cases that we see. And so what you see broadly in society is that on the one hand, we want to help people who have, God forbid, been victimized, God forbid, have been harmed by others. But sometimes, arguably over recent years, you've actually gone to the extreme that whoever makes the accusation is by default believed over the accused. So I'll give you a source just in the Chafetz Chaim over here, because you brought up Lashon Hara. Richard, you mentioned Lashon Hara before, which is derogatory speech. Now, Lashon Hara, by definition, is usually when you accuse someone of something that is true. A little lesser known category is called motzi shemra, when you cast aspersions on someone. So the classic case in the Bible of motzi shemra actually is in Sefer Dvarim Deuteronomy, is when a husband wrongfully, deliberately fabricates a story against his wife, accusing her of infidelity. He hires witnesses, and finally, once it's all discovered, he owes her all sorts of compensation for harming her reputation. So we have a basis of that already in biblical law, and it's expounded in rabbinic law as well. So I'll just give you an excerpt from the Chafetz Chaim, and then feel free to share with me if you think it speaks a little bit to our story. The Chafetz Chaim writes, this is fairly recent. That biblically, it's not just simply that one's not allowed to accuse someone of something falsely, but I, the third party, the listener, am not allowed to accept such a report either. And even if you know that the report is probably credible, you have reason to believe it's true, it's always possible that Reuven and Shimon, we could both look at the same data together, but we both draw different conclusions, right? So we both see a gentleman picking up something on the sidewalk. I know that to be true. Did I know if it was a string, or did I know if it was a purse containing someone's belongings? So we can both look at the same thing and come to different conclusions. And we know there's a basic principle. It's in the ethics of our fathers in Pirkei Avos that there's an imperative to be dam lekavskus. We're always supposed to be given the benefit of the doubt. Every person has what we call in Hebrew a cheskas kashrus, which means a presumption of innocence, a presumption of being kashrus, being kosher. And unless we have significant, credible reason to think otherwise, by default, we assume everyone's a good person. And if someone violates this precept and does not judge someone favorably, not only do want to violate the verse which says in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 15, that you shall judge your nation favorably, you should judge your nation with tzedek, but also you have violated the prohibition of accepting evil speech. So this is one of many excerpts, but I think it gets the point across that there's an imperative to judge someone favorably. So you have two people, especially when we know there's a history behind it, that they're feuding with each other, and Reuben and Shimon are in an argument. Reuben accuses Shimon of something, to jump to the conclusion that Shimon's automatically guilty based off one individual's accusation. In Jewish law, even, you need at least two witnesses in order as a valid, admissible proof in court. So I think what we're seeing in this story is especially applicable today, where it's no longer in court, it's the court of public opinion that determines people's futures. And unfortunately, we've seen many sad endings to it, like the story here. So that's there's more sources I can share, but I want to give people time. We only have about 13 minutes left, so I want to make sure everyone has a chance to participate.
Okay. A few points. RJ, you pretty much concentrated on the mercenary nature of the story and of the village, and that as a motivation for everyone turning on the Hoshkam. But I would bring up the matter of provincialism, which is a very common thing among these small rural towns, even in this common day and age. Hoshkam is an outsider. His accuser, the harness maker, is a leading figure of in the village. And I think that's pretty much what the original accusation was mercenary. There was a business dispute between the two. Why does everyone take his side against the other? The harness maker is one of their own. Hoshkam is an outsider. He's from a neighboring village, and most important, he was from Normandy, as you pointed out. It's a matter of regional prejudice. Normans are known for being frugal, as pointed out, and for being sharp in business. Where have we heard that before? And basically, this is where I don't see too much connection with the Shirley Jackson story. There's no outsider in that story. The scapegoat that they pick is always picked arbitrarily from within the village. It's really a throwback to an anachronism to pre-biblical pagan times when used to pick out a virgin to throw into the volcano. So I think that the basic motivation is more along those lines rather than.
That's a very good observation. The outsider. How do you deal with the outsider? And ties in with Ruth. Do you listen? I mean, is there room for accepting someone who is outside your village, and are you going to always look at him as someone who's going to take advantage of you? The Normans are known to be shrewd. They're very shrewd, wily business people, and so we always have to take our side against them because we're more proper. We're yasher, as they say. We deal people more transparently. But yeah, I mean, there's that. And, I think that's a theme here is how do we get to listen to the other person? I mean, we're in our society today, we're so stone deaf to our own neighbors, people in our own family. We don't listen to each other anymore. We jump to conclusions, and like the rabbi said, because someone makes an accusation, and that person is an insider against an outsider. Who protects the position of the outsider? I mean, how do we start opening up our brains and start listening to each other? That's a fundamental question here.
The Torah is a prescription against oppressing the stranger in your midst, which is pretty much what's happening here.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful analogy. Remember who you were. We came out as strangers. We were strangers in a foreign land, and we were freed from that foreign land.
Yeah.
So we're open. We accept the Egyptian convert. We have to wait 3 generations, but they can marry into our people 3 generations later. They're not perpetually your enemy, like the Moabites. The Moabites, we know, they're forever. The male Moabites, not the females, but the male Moabites, they're forever excluded. I mean, there's the Torah gets into this very, very much so, and it's something that we need to be aware of. The outsider. I mean, we dealt with that. The man who would bring rain, the way that the American missionaries dealt and have dealt, continue to deal with the indigenous original colonists of America, the Indian culture. They were here way before us. And what did we do? We kind of treated like the other. We didn't listen to their point of view. Their religion was nothing compared to our religion of Christianity. And we formed missions. We rounded them up, kicked them off their property. And put them in missions. We raped their women. We destroyed their totem poles. We had them learn catechism, and we basically colonized. We cannibalized other cultures in order to create who we are, and that's something that we need to, and we're still facing up to. We're facing up to Navajo Nation. We're trying to give them their lands back and giving them property rights that we took away from them. We took away their lands that was holy to them because they were the other. I mean, that's a major thing that we have to deal with, and even in our own Judaism. How do we deal with different groups? How do we accept one group accepting the other group? Without there being bitter dissension. I was at a car deal the other day, and I met somebody who was a Satmar. Now, even in the Satmar group, his allegiance is to the Satmar that's in Brooklyn. Now, one of the brothers went up to Muncie area, and there's such division amongst groups that started off with the same father, father Satmar, and then you have the 2 sons warring against each other, and bitterness. Where does it end? And I think that's what de Maupassant is saying. He's not saying that he's not giving up completely. This is a fiction, but he's saying, look, guys, you got to wake up. We cannot live a society of not listening to the other person and not treating the outsider because you yourselves are once outsiders, and it's imperative upon the Jew to look at other people. I mean, I just spent a week at my brother's shul. My brother's a cantor in Balkori in a conservative synagogue. That the way that synagogue has survived is by opening up their doors, and they have 7 or 8 other religions that use their facility because there's such a lack of space, of venue for other religions to practice religion, that the conservative synagogue has become a rallying point of openness, that we want the community to come together and realize that there are other points of view, and we accept them, and we'll allow them to use our facility. Of course, there's a commercial aspect to it. It keeps the conservative synagogue going to a great degree. But the president of the conservative synagogue was given a street naming in Queens of all the dignitaries in Queens, Queensborough president, the assemblymen, the congressmen, everybody gathered together, and basically the whole point was to emphasize unity, that there is no otherness, that we have to survive as a community of nations. We're not just the Hebrew nation. There are other nations that are here in America, and we have to learn to live with each other. And this is what Rabbi Aaron Krantz was known for, reaching out, bringing other cultures and treating them with respect. And that's and I thank you for bringing that to my notice, Stuart. I mean, because that's so much a part of what the Lashon Hara is all about. To have baseless hatred. Gittin 55b, where we talk about Kumsa and Bar Kumsa, just this enmity amongst people of the same name. We come from the same roots, the same biological roots, and yet we hate each other because of skin color. This one's yellow, this one's brown, this one's mulatto, this one is pure white, this one's albino. I mein, there's no end to it.
Can I make a very brief point? I
Sure.
want to say something about the psychology of an accusing witness. We know from the story that the harness maker, did not actually see a pocketbook. The question is, when he stuck to his guns when he was brought into, to confront the Hoshkom in the mayor's office, was he actually lying through his teeth, or at some point does such a man like that actually psych himself up into convincing himself that he actually did see the pocketbook with his own eyes?
Very good point. I mean,
and
very
that's
good
something
point.
that we can't determine absolutely.
We can't determine, but that hatred becomes so strong. You start believing in your lies, and you start living a life of utter lies. And there are people that and I know that actually live that way, and you have to avoid these people. You can't argue them down. You just have to be independent. And I think that's what Maupassant is saying. You in a community where there is no sense of rightfulness, righteousness, loving kindness, be a mensch. That's what he's saying. Stand out. Decry religion. The religion here is so it's a band-aid religion. They go to church, yes, but there's no respect of no morality here. There's no value the humaneness. The purpose of religion is each ben adam, man to man. It's very important. God wants us to respect each other. Yes, we respect him, but we respect him through respecting each other, that we're all of the same cloth, so to speak, to borrow a clergy term, that we're all part of the clergy, so to speak. We all have God's cloth in us, and we have to realize that and wake up, and that's what the Maupassant is strongly demanding, and that's what the lottery is saying the same thing too. Stand up, stand up, walk away from these traditions that are just hurting, destroying society. And start thinking about words, that words matter, and don't believe everything that you hear you see in the internet, you hear on whatever news channel you're in. You've got to question it and say, am I hearing news, or is that somebody's point of view? They believe that happened. They believe, like Stuart said, that Maladen, he believed that guy, that Hoshkorn picked up a wallet. He believed it, because that's he's so full of malice. Can't believe how people destroy each other. Families destroy each other. My family, everybody has in their family someone having malice towards all, and it destroys families. But you have to come out and get strong and discover who you are. Forget about these people, man. Be like an Abraham. Be the one righteous person in the world. Save the world for Abraham. And that's what God basically does. He saves the Abraham, Noah. Each one stands out in his generation. And you got to stand up and be somebody. I think these are powerful messages that these stories that we've been reading seem to all point to. And I appreciate everybody comments that you're making, Stuart and Ruth. Thank you for coming, and Rabbi Kurtz. And we do have a fall program. I've got some really good stuff on the fall. If anybody wants to know, if there's a movie out called Mr. And Mrs. I'm just trying to remember now. It's with Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward. But it's a story. There's a book written based on a family, and I'm going to pull out one of the little chapters from that story and speak about it, because it talks about punishment. What kind of punishment do you get for what type of act? I think that's a great opportunity for us to get into something like that. If you have other ideas, Ruth, Stuart, please share them with us, because we want feedback, and that's the way we continue this program. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm very curious, the movie, when
Yes.
was it produced? In 1960, 1970?
Okay,
What-
I mean, this